Has Meghan Markle been the grand architect of her and Harry's self-destruction? Hello everyone, welcome to Royal News Network. My name is Brittany, and today we're going to be talking about kind of the implosion of this facade that Meghan Markle has put to the public, and how as time has gone on, it's become unbelievably apparent that most of what she's told us, or the image that she likes to portray, in many ways is fundamentally false. We've seen this through the Tom Bower book, through the Valentine Low book, that she has concocted this grand narrative around herself that when you just poke at it a smidge, it just seems to crumble. And when she first came into the royal family, when she first came on the scene, people were questioning these things, absolutely. But in the beginning, I think people were willing to give her the benefit of the doubt. Perhaps she misspoke. Perhaps there's another explanation for this. I think people were really kind of gave her a bit of leeway. But as time has gone on and more reports are coming out about detailing her bullying against palace staff, how a lot of what she said, you know, this soap story that she has this soapbox on, pardon the pun, just makes no sense when looked at from a logic standpoint. You almost have to believe she still actually believes Santa Claus is a real person, that actually believe the version of this story she tells. And you're looking at all this and going, okay, well, you know, your popularity, your brand is kind of in the toilet. Harry and Meghan have apparently cut ties with Sunshine Sachs, although they'll still be using them from time to time. And I think that's really indicative of how difficult Harry and Meghan are to work with, and how really they have been the architects of their own destruction. And I think people, in many respects, are trying to jump ship as quickly as humanly possible to avoid the chaos, the narcissism, and just basically the toxicity that surrounds Harry and Meghan, that they perpetually grow again and again and again. So that's what we will be exploring today in this video. But if you guys haven't been here to Royal News Network before, hello, my name is Brittany, and on this channel we provide compelling royal commentary and a bit of news and gossip put in there as well. We also will discuss television shows, movies, and history. And if you do love fashion and royal fashion, I will be starting a fashion channel later this month. So if you guys want to go ahead and subscribe here, and I'll put a link there in the description box down below as well. But before we get to Harry and Meghan, I did just want to briefly mention, and I will do a longer deep dive video on this, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, is kind of the chaos going on in Denmark regarding these royal titles. So Prince Joachim and his wife Marie have claimed now that their daughter is getting bullied at school because she was born a princess, and now that title is being pulled and she is being given a countess title instead. Take a brief listen to this interview with Marie and Joachim here.
Jeg synes, det er vigtigt at forsvare vores børn i denne her sag, og der er to alvorlige ting. Det er at fratage.
They're speaking and just talking about all the chaos that this has all caused, and how they haven't really had a chance to chat with the Queen. They haven't really had a chance to chat with the Crown Prince couple. So this would be Crown Prince Frederick and his wife Mary about this issue. And I think this is hugely problematic, because I was strongly for what the Danish have done, and I thought it helped Charles. And I still think to a certain extent it was needed to be done. However, how this was handled has been an utter disaster. PR-wise, this is a train wreck. And I think it's important to unpack this, because unfortunately, I wonder if it may give Charles some cold feet, because his relationship with Harry and Meghan is already bad. And I think he's a nice person, and he genuinely wants to connect with his son and his daughter-in-law and his grandchildren. And so I can see this actually being a bit of a turn-off to Charles, going, ugh, I don't want to deal with this. So we will kind of unpack that in a bigger video, because I think it's definitely worth mentioning. But we talked about it on Saturday morning in the live stream that I did, that this is just really starting to devolve into kind of a crazy situation in Denmark, which usually does not make international news at all, but it is this week. So we will be unpacking that in a later video. But I just really wanted to get to a couple of things that we've learned from Valentine Low, and obviously Sunshine Sachs and Harry and Meghan breaking ties. And then we also have these rumors that Harry and Meghan are looking to perhaps move further north out of Montecito. But it's just really fascinating to see this dynamic where Harry and Meghan, in many ways, were at the top of the world when they got married. They were the most searched about couple. Everybody was talking about Harry and Meghan. And it was generally in a positive light. I've heard from a lot of you that most of you genuinely liked Meghan, at least perhaps through the engagement and the wedding. Most people either mentioned the engagement or the wedding. That was the point where they're like, I'm not so sure about that. Or the Oprah Winfrey interview. Those are kind of the three key instances for people where their minds, if they were pro Harry and Meghan, perhaps shifted. For me, I actually didn't like Meghan from the beginning. And perhaps that was for a couple of reasons. I mean, I did think Harry was cute, not going to deny that. But what immediately struck me with Meghan is that some of what we were told from the jump about her made no sense to me. And one of the things was that she was this great successful actress. And I'm like, okay, awesome. She was in Horrible Bosses. I was like, really? Okay, that was a big movie. I had that movie. I enjoyed that movie. I actually saw it twice in one weekend. I was like, I really enjoyed it. So I was like, okay, well, let me go find her. Her grand total of her part was, I think, 30 seconds or less. That's an itty bitty role. And she was on Suits, and I haven't actually seen Suits, but I like Psych. Psych is also on the USA Network, and I know they've done a couple of really good shows. And so I was like, I mean, I like Psych, and Psych, I think, does have genuinely several good actors in it, but it's definitely not top tier. Nobody was ever following those people around. They didn't have a grander platform, really. They've all gone on to do other things. And actually, Dulé Hill, who was on Psych, ended up being on Suits. And he actually started on The West Wing. So a lot of them do have genuinely good connections and have been on good shows. But I'm like, successful actress? I'm not totally seeing that. And then we had this whole thing about all the philanthropy she's done and all those sorts of things. And it did, I think, have the great impact that Meghan wanted it to. She wanted to, apparently, even before she met Harry, or around the time where she was trying to get in to meet Harry, she was trying to recreate herself as kind of in this Goop model and as this great humanitarian. And I'm like, but she's been on one trip. I know people who have been on the ground right after genocides, and I've heard some of their stories, and they're harrowing. That's like, and I was looking at the pictures going, looks like you kind of just did a photo op in Africa. That's just kind of what it looks like. And so from the beginning, I just thought the narrative that Meghan had concocted just screamed kind of false to me. And I think part of that too is the real reason is that I could tell she was trying to draw attention to herself through her Instagram posts and trying to, give people hints about her relationship with Harry. She had the elephant teacup and the puzzle. She had that picture of her where she had the bracelets that one of them matched Harry. So, if you were watching this, if you had any clue that this no-name actress from Suits somehow managed to actually get an introduction to Prince Harry and was actually dating him, maybe you would have seen that. And then even after they started dating, she would post pictures of her dog in a Union Jack sweater as if to say, oh, Harry's here. And, the spooning bananas. Who can forget those spooning bananas? So just as a foundation, Meghan had crafted, as kind of the lead up to her and Harry's relationship, this facade of who she was. She had laid this groundwork trying to tell the world that she was this great humanitarian. She was this actress on this very successful television show. She was a millionaire. And personally, I just never bought it. But here's the thing, a lot of people did. And I'm not blaming anybody for believing it. I just happened to watch Hollywood very, very closely. And so she just screamed desperate actress to me from the jump. That's what she screamed to me, is desperate actress. And here's the thing, as an actress, as somebody who was C-D-list actress, let's be honest, she could craft this narrative about who she was and nobody would question it because nobody cared enough to actually look into the details and go, okay, is this right? Is that right? No, nobody cared. And so she could create these stories and share these stories as if they were these great groundbreaking things. But if you poke at it just a little bit, it doesn't either make a ton of sense or it seems like yeah, you're not telling us everything. The greatest example is that soap story. So Meghan's story is that she saw this commercial. She thought it was sexist. Somehow the children in her 4th grade class were discussing this at school, because I didn't know discussing marketing campaigns is something that generally happens in elementary school. It didn't happen in my elementary school. So I doubt it happened in other people's too. And if you think about it, if this was a classroom discussion and a class project to do it, yeah, the teacher would show it in class to try to get the kids to write letters and help in this campaign to get this commercial changed. But Meghan's general story that she still repeated on her podcast is that her single letter somehow managed her letter to PG. So Procter & Gamble, this huge household cleaning company, she wrote a letter to Gloria Allred, and she wrote a letter to First Lady at the time, Hillary Clinton, that somehow her sole letter, her sole effort changed a multi-million-dollar marketing campaign. I'm sorry, if you truly believe that, you believe in Santa Claus. You do, because I'm just a no-name child. I mean, she had like one news thing that kind of did it. But again, it's like, if a company is not receiving broad outrage on an incident, and this was in the 90s, this was in the 90s. So you got to think they had to be hearing a lot about it, because they don't have like social media. So it would have to be phone calls, letters, those sorts of things. You're telling me that one letter from one 12, 13-year-old changed, sorry, that's older than she would have been. I'm not sure exactly, 12, so maybe she was in 5th grade, 5th and 6th grade, 12, 11, 10, somewhere around there. You're telling me that you actually believe that that one single letter changed a whole marketing campaign, Meghan? Yeah, I call BS on that. That doesn't make any sense. But Meghan has stuck to this story, and she's doubled down on it, because Meghan has crafted this facade. And this continued into her engagement interview. She told us, and I think this raised a lot of red flags for people, that she had no clue who Harry was. And they were like, or no clue about the British monarchy. Everybody's like, really? I mean, I have a whole stack of magazines because of Meghan and what she said about, oh, we don't have tabloids in the United States. I've started grabbing magazines when royals and Meghan are on the cover, because what she said was untrue. And then she says, well, and she just wanted to know if he was nice before she met him. And I was like, what, really? And it just was like, she wanted the world to see her as this sort of naive, almost 40-year-old, by the way, almost naive woman who was over the age of 35, approaching 40, let's be honest. You know, I know some people say she's older, but we'll just go with her, the age that, you know, the media we've had reported. I haven't seen a birth certificate that says otherwise. That she was this kind of naive, generous actress who kind of in the midst of her career, and, you know, but she met this prince. She crafted this fairy tale. Because see, even in the Cut interview recently, she wanted to tell the world about her love story, this grand love story her and Harry had. But again, you kind of poke at it and it crumbles. Then you get to the wedding, and we've been told that Meghan is this very generous, kind person. Well, her father's not there. There's no family there but her mother. Is she an orphan? Did all of the family died like bubonic plague? And as it came out more and more, it was like, no, you know, she had a half brother, half sister. She has a father. She has uncles and aunts and nephews and nieces. She has all these things, and yet all of a sudden they don't matter. And so again, it was like Meghan was trying to rewrite her history up into the wedding. Though I do think her wedding and the engagement interview, you know, people turned off after the engagement interview. They turned off after the wedding. Again, because Meghan couldn't help herself. She had to change who she was. She could not be the daughter of an interracial couple and actually interact with her father, her white father who's overweight, who's perhaps not the most attractive, who doesn't fit her narrative, I don't think, nor do her siblings. No, it just had to be her mom. It just had to be her mom. Like, what else? You know, she had the uncle who helped her get the internship in Argentina. She couldn't have him come. Well, that's her father's brother. He's white. So she, again, was changing who she was. And we've seen this, and again, very well documented in the Tom Bower book, that she would change circles. And as soon as you weren't what Meghan wanted or needed, she kind of just dropped you. And it's now been so common. It's in the Urban Dictionary as being Markled. Yes, a certain kind of ghosting is being Markle. And that's not necessarily a super flattering adjective to have about yourself, really. And her desire to craft herself as this different person, she had to drop people she didn't think fit that image that she wanted. And all the time in the background working at this, as she's building up this huge brand, she's working her self-brand of herself. She's working with Sunshine Sachs. And Sunshine Sachs, as we've been told in the Tom Bower book, we're like, oh my gosh, you're going to be the next Diana. You're going to be this huge thing. And she paid them constantly to inflate her, to put her in front of the UN. She got that UN speech that she makes such a big deal about because she paid Sunshine Sachs to get her roles like that. She paid them to do that, much like she paid an agent. She paid Sunshine Sachs to promote her enough that where somebody was like, yeah, we'll place you there. Even though, like, how does she have any platform to talk about these issues? She really hasn't done anything. She wants all the accolade, but won't do any of the real work necessary to do these things. What's really allowed her to kind of grow this facade that she had at the beginning of kind of her royal life was the help of Sunshine Sachs and her paying them so much money to promote her constantly, day after day after day. Meghan, 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 Meghan. Not just before she married Harry, but after she married Harry. And so then she kind of goes on this, well, she's a duchess now, and she's trying to reframe herself yet again. And for the most part, her kind of image worked for a while. She had this huge grand debut in the South Pacific. She was pregnant. Things were going kind of pretty well. But then cracks started to emerge. It started with I think it was the first thing that came out was, I think, Tiara Gate. I would have to double check, but I think with Tiara Gate was the first thing that came out kind of right after she went on tour, that she threw this tantrum over the tiara. And then it came out over the bridesmaid scuffle. And then her personal assistant was leaving. So these cracks started to emerge pretty quickly. Even though, she was smiling. She puts on her duchessing act, and for the most part, I think most people kind of buy it. But the cracks were starting to emerge because the narrative she was spinning for people was not true behind the scenes. Although she puts on all great smiles and she's so gracious, she baked this loaf of bread and she's so casual. She doesn't have the stuffy air of royalty, except for when she's with the staff and all of a sudden she's Marie Antoinette, demanding things of people. She's acting as if she's the Queen of Sheba. She won't talk to anybody she deems too beneath her to talk with. She's screaming at staff. Staff even who have worked for the palace for over a decade are kind of not really cowering in fear, but so fed up, so frustrated, so irritated that they will even go out of their way to avoid Harry and Meghan. This is what Sam Cohen did during the tour. She had Harry and Meghan screamed at her one morning, and so she was told the rest of the staff, hey, avoid them. And Meghan, in her infinite wisdom, didn't really think what would happen when you tick people off and you belittle them and you demean them, and the palace doesn't have an incentive to protect you. So even if those people sign NDAs, because I think Meghan thought, these people sign NDAs, these people are my servants. I think that was the mentality that she had. She didn't think they would ever talk. She had no concept that that would actually happen. And I think to a certain extent, that is one of her grand undoings, is that she didn't think far enough ahead to wonder what would happen when those people weren't working for her and she left the royal family and the palace is like, this makes us look bad too, but we won't do anything if you write X and Y and Z story about Meghan. We won't do anything. She never thought about that. And again, this is the whole thing where she's so busy thinking about herself and this image she's trying to create. She didn't think what would happen to the other people around her, or that her actions and how she treated people may eventually backfire on her at some point. And then you get to their press, again, is starting to go off the rails. They had the debacle with the birth, telling people Meghan was in labor when she had given birth several hours before. The journalists weren't happy. People in general weren't happy. They told us initially Archie is not going to have a title. Fine. And they were told, well, he's a private citizen, so we can't let you know who his godparents are. We can't let anybody see them coming in. And it's like, well, okay. But then they kind of continue now, looking at it now, they still make a big deal about their kids. They still talk about their kids all the time. They want their kids to have these royal titles, yet they won't let the public, who's going to essentially live with these royal titles, see these children. It all just doesn't make any sense, because but I think the problem is Meghan is so busy with the machinations behind the scene and trying to constantly fix the bad press that she doesn't realize the easiest thing to do would be to simply tell the truth and move on, because people, I think, would embrace that a lot more. And then we get to Mexit. Mexit was Harry and Meghan again. They had a whole website built with their demands for Mexit on it, telling the Queen and the palace what they would do after Mexit, that they would still have internationally protected person status, meaning they're so important they still get taxpayer funded security, that they're still going to do tours for the Queen. They sent basically a list of their demands. And what did the palace do? Shot it down. They're like, no, we're not playing this game. And again, it made Harry and Meghan look very, very foolish on the international stage. And then you get obviously to the time after that, they're poking at the monarchy as they're going about kind of the next year, kind of undermining the Queen's Commonwealth Trust, which she made Harry and Meghan president and vice president of. And then you get to this point where you had the Oprah Winfrey interview, and really everything cracked. And people who were still maybe kind of liked Harry and Meghan started to slowly taper off. And it was because what she was saying in that interview, like so many other things, when you poke at it, it doesn't totally make sense. So you have the thing about Archie's title. She said, well, it was going to be because of the color of his skin, they weren't going to give it to us. And then she later admitted in the interview, well, the letters of patent say, and it's like, yeah, the letters of patent say your son doesn't get a title. He's the great grandson of the monarch, not the grandson of the monarch. And only the children of the only the grandchildren of the Prince of Wales can have a prince and princess title. That has been written into the letters of patent. So what's the truth there? Harry and Meghan couldn't even agree on when this supposed comment about Archie's skin tone or their baby's skin tone would be made. Meghan said it was several times while she was pregnant. Harry said it was once before they got married. Well, which is it? And this, I think, is where kind of Meghan's narcissism kind of started to really implode her brand, because she said things she couldn't back up. Because even after the interview, they had to scramble to tell the world, no, it wasn't the Queen or Prince Philip who said that. Because most people thought, well, the person who makes the most sense of making a comment about skin tone, honestly, is Prince Philip and Prince Harry. So they kind of came over and they slapped that down. It's like, because Meghan is so busy working on delivering or creating this facade of herself, she doesn't even seem to think of what would happen if you make a basic allegation and people are speculating, and they might speculate it's the Queen or Prince Philip. She wants them to speculate about Charles, Camilla, William, and Catherine. Those are her true targets. So she has to amend this, because again, it all comes back to this very superficiality of who she is. And I think we see this a lot displayed at royal events sometimes, particularly the Commonwealth Day and the recent Queen's Platinum Jubilee, where her and Harry, Meghan's kind of has this demure smile on, and Harry just looks thunderous, or everybody else looks thunderous when it comes to the Commonwealth Day. And it's like, well, honey, we all can tell that's fake because nobody else looks that way. You have this look that just does not match with the rest of what's going on. And I think this has really come to fruition when it comes to Harry and Meghan's kind of dream about themselves in Hollywood. They wanted to be these Hollywood producers. They were going to create these fantastic projects. They were going to change lives and change worlds and all these sorts of things. Well, I think they ended up selling a lot of these people a bucket of bolts. Instead of being having a million ideas, they can't even bring something to the foreground. They're scrambling to try to edit it, to take out the negative comments they made about the monarchy all of a sudden when Charles is king. So again, it screams, well, if they weren't true to begin with, or if you're going to have to edit them out now, why say them at all? Why are they in there in the first place if you need to edit them out now? It's a huge, huge question that Harry and Meghan have to deal with. And again, I think Meghan, I see her a lot. Obviously, there's a lot of narcissistic, comparisons people make to other celebrities who seem to be narcissists. I'm not a diagnostician. I do not know. I cannot diagnose Meghan I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a counselor. I can't say she's a narcissist. And when it comes to the clinical definition, but she seems to exhibit those traits. And when it came to Hollywood, what came to mind to me with Meghan is Elizabeth Holmes, who created Theranos. She sold people and got billions of dollars, people to invest billions, smart people, when she didn't have a product. Her product was unfeasible. It would never have worked. People in the medical community could have told her and did tell her, this will not work. And she couldn't ever make it work. And she was eventually convicted of fraud, I believe, officially convicted of fraud. And while Meghan, I don't think, will face the same kind of court situation, I think she's been exposed a bit as a fraud when it comes to being a creative. And so now we arrive somewhat to today. Now I realize I skipped over things. I didn't cover everything. I don't think I have enough time to. Throughout this entire process, what has really become apparent is that Meghan is the architect of her own destruction. As this chaos continues to play out, as more people release books about kind of who she really is, she is the architect of her own demise. She is the reason why she is so unpopular, unlikable, all these sorts of things. Yet it seems to a certain extent that perhaps they blame Sunshine Sachs. So I thought this was really interesting. So Harry and Meghan have officially severed ties with Sunshine Sachs. And part of the reason is, well, they're both pretty unpopular. The Sun says Harry and Meghan have parted ways with their US-based PR agency, Sunshine Sachs. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex parted ways with the New York firm after their popularity plunged. And why is that? Well, it's really Harry and Meghan. Harry and Meghan made catastrophic errors. They told the world that they needed to conserve their own energy, while Harry and Meghan felt free to take private jets. Meghan especially would preach about kindness, yet treated her staff, her taxpayer-funded staff, like dirt. And we've been told that she's great humanitarian, yet she's in the midst of immense poverty in South Africa and can't help but moan about her own life, even though she's living in a palace. Now, granted, living in a palace doesn't mean all your problems are solved or that all your issues are vanquished. But it raises huge, huge questions about your integrity and what you're trying to get the people to believe. And the thing is, Meghan has tried so hard to get people to believe certain things she wants them to believe about herself. And when that doesn't go the way she wants to, that she goes completely off the rails. And I think we saw a lot of that in the Cut interview. She was trying to, make herself sound personable. So she tells us this weird story about her in the playhouse with this 1-year-old child, and she was trying to get into the playhouse or something like that, and a mom was looking on the outside watching Meghan apparently try to maybe play with her kid or something. Why would you put a 1-year-old in a bouncy house by themselves? I don't even understand. But she was trying to, I think, portray herself as, oh, I'm down to earth, I'm homey. But at the same time, like, well, your story doesn't make a ton of sense. And I just really question why you're getting in a bouncy house with a child. That's what I want to know. And so when it comes to PR now, Harry and Meghan are bringing that in-house, and that was apparently always the plan. And it's going to be handled by a woman through Archwell. And I want to say, I just want to tell her Godspeed, because your worst PR battle is going to be your own clients. And that's Harry and Meghan, because again, she is the architect of her own demise, and therefore Harry's too. She can't stop not sharing half-truths about herself, and it just continues to come back to bite her again and again and again. And Valentine Low is pointing this out in his book as well. He mentions that Harry and Meghan, that they had tried to figure out what to do with Meghan, tried to see maybe if she wanted to be a director or producer, continue in her work in some way. And she's like, oh no, I want to be a working member of the royal family. There was no need to think she had to take on her new role in a particular way, he said. She didn't have to be straitjacketed, as Meghan had already made it clear that she had no wish to carry on her acting career. They spoke about related work she might do as a producer or director, for instance, or a writer, and whether she might work in the charitable sector. But as it turned out, Meghan, I don't think, was ever fully invested in being a royal unless it could work for her. She wanted freebies. She wanted to basically get paid to show up at appearances, not thinking that her allowance basically from the Duchy of Cornwall is essentially her salary. That is your salary. That's what you're getting paid to do. And so this idea that she's really all that charitable, once again, falls apart because, well, if you're really charitable. But I think the other thing to consider here, and I'll kind of end on this note, is I think because Meghan has tried to create this false persona so much that it encourages conspiracy theories, it encourages toxicity, it encourages people to question basically every little thing she does. And I agree, to a certain extent, she's under a great amount of scrutiny. But I think the only person she has to blame about that is herself. Because I think once people see past the fakeness that is Meghan, all of a sudden they're trying to poke through everything they've heard. Is this right? Is that right? Wait, that doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. We need to find out what is true here. And I think Meghan, to her detriment and to her own demise, has made it much easier for people to go, oh wait, that wasn't right, was it? So, well, let's look at this. Let's look at that. And because of that, Meghan has become basically trapped in this negative, toxic spiral, because I don't think, to a certain extent, her platform, her brand can ever fully recover, because I don't think there was never any truth in the foundation to begin with. And I think that is why Meghan is the architect of her own demise. She didn't take the time to just be herself. She didn't want to be herself. She wanted to create something else. And you know what? There's only so long you can keep that up. At some point, either from outside pressures or inside pressures, that will utterly collapse on you. Because when you're not truthful, when you're not giving your authentic self, people can tell, people notice. And after some point, yes, maybe a small group of people, I was one of the few who said at the beginning, I don't think she's going to be a good fit here. And that number has grown and grown and grown and grown because of Meghan. Meghan is the one who's made that happen. Meghan is the one who's caused people, because I think this narrative she's tried to concoct about herself is based on on sand instead of bedrock. It just continues, the waves come up and they just continue to erode again and again and again. And Meghan, like I said, the reason her public image is so bad, the reason why her and Harry's popularity has tanked, is them. They have nobody else to blame here. All they had to do was smile. All they had to do was just kind of do some charitable things. And you know what? People would generally love you for it. You don't have to do that much. But no, Harry and Meghan decided they wanted to do something else. They wanted to craft something different. And you know what? People figure that out eventually. I think Meghan's problem at the end of the day is she couldn't be authentic. She had to inflate her stories. She had to add things in there that didn't make sense. She had to make herself sound grander than she is. Because Meghan couldn't be authentic, because she had to inflate things, that she had to exaggerate different aspects of various stories and interactions, what's happened is she's become the architect of her own demise. People, they no longer trust Harry and Meghan. And Harry and Meghan have nobody to blame but themselves. And I think most of the blame rests on Meghan. Well, guys, let me know what you think about this video. I was kind of debating what to do, and I just really love this idea of exploring the implosion of brand Meghan, because, again, it's been fascinating to watch somebody who had the whole world at their fingertips just totally miff it. It's kind of really weirdly hysterical in a way. I forgot to mention that Catherine and William and Charles and Camilla did this picture before they went to this diplomatic reception. And it's just like, that is the future of the monarchy. That is where Harry and Meghan would have been in that picture. I guarantee you, if they could have stayed within the monarchy. But no, they had to do these kind of cheap side hustles, and what do you know what? You miss out on history. But guys, let me know what you think. I hope this video landed, I really do. I appreciate you guys so much for watching, and I hope to reach 50,000 very, very, very soon. So guys, I appreciate you guys so much for all your kind comments. I know I can't get to every one of them, but I'm so grateful for all of you. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.